Just like the Daily Planet, Kal-El is black and white and red all over. Here's a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, the Big Bad Toy Store 2023 exclusive, the black and white accent edition Superman. Sent to Earth from the dying planet of Krypton as a baby, Kal-El was found by farmers Martha and Jonathan Kent and raised as their son Clark. As Clark grew up, the radiation from the Earth's yellow sun gave him enhanced senses and extraordinary powers, including super strength, super speed, heat vision, X-ray vision, super hearing, super breath, and flight. Now fully grown, he uses his powers to protect the adopted world as Superman. Now, I don't think you'd be looking for bad guys over at Big Bad Toy Store, but what you would be looking for is this particular Superman, as the accent version of Superman is a Big Bad Toy Store exclusive for 2023. With only 3,000 copies available, unfortunately, he has those sold out over on their site. So if you guys are interested to get this one for yourself, you may have to check around online. Now, I didn't get this one actually from BBTS. Rather, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample we could have a look at in this review. Now, he is actually based mold-wise on the original Page Punchers Superman, which I'll bring in more in a moment. You can see, though, that a lot of the colors got stripped away, leaving behind mostly black and white with these really cool red accents. Grabbing as well the tape measure, see how tall the figure stands. He is exactly 7 inches in height, or this particular Superman stands at 17.5 centimeters tall. Parting my hairy arm as I just slide over the accent Superman that we're about to have a look at, and I in fact bring in the Page Puncher Superman that we did look at from before. You know, still looking at these figures, not only do I really like this mold, it's actually one of my favorite Superman I have in my collection, but I think even in the review of the Page Puncher Superman that I said it looked like actor Eric Balfour. I know many of you may even recognize that name. He was actually in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I feel he bears a very strong likeness, at least in the face sculpt, but not just looking at the face alone. You can see like the bodies are going to be exactly the same from one to the other. Just the change of palette is the one thing that's really differentiating the two figures from one to the other. Differentiate. Boy, that's a hard word to say. What isn't as hard to say is the accessories that come included with the figure. First, Superman comes with two really new things. Not necessarily as new, the figure comes included with this card holder. It so happens to be the same card holder that we've gotten before with the movie Maniacs line, although with the movie Maniacs, this would have all been done here in silver plastic. Superman gets treated rather instead to sort of a very dark black, and with both being the dark black and then the red emblem on the front, short of it just bleeding, it reminds me of the death of Superman. What we then can do is we can take the card that's provided along with this. Superman that almost looks like he's got some stubble growing. A really nice, again, representation for the Superman that we're about to have a look at. All done again in just black and white gray scheme. And of course, you've got the glowing red eyes, nicely done and outlined in red. If we flip around, though, to the back, it just basically tells us it's a black and white accent edition certificate of authenticity. Now, this is, again, limited of 3,000 copies, though the one that was provided to me by McFarlane's team happens to be 0 out of 3,000. The card, though, then fits just in the provided grooves. You can see the grooves on either side. This basically just allows the card to sit inside of it. It's also the same card standee that we've gotten with a lot of, in fact, those kind of shoebox-style McFarlane releases as of late. Like we just recently had a look at, for example, I think the Infinite Frontier Scarecrow had a very similar sort of setup. The figure also comes included with this really cool looking standee stand. The stand itself is quite long. I'm sure it's been used before. It does have one little peg up the top corner. And again, still in red, we've got the Superman font printed across the front. The only thing about it, though, is just to move this out of the way. If we take Superman, we'll also move his hands out of the way. If we were to take the Superman, thank you, and we just put him on the display stand, I feel it sort of doesn't put him quite centered. I mean, you can bring the legs a little bit closer together, but if you want, though, a wider stance for Supes, which I would prefer to have myself, I think instead of having the peg right here, I would have moved it over to maybe right around here, maybe just above the A. So again, like if you were to take, I mean, it's only a small criticism, but if you were to say, take your Superman and plug it onto the peg provided, again, I don't feel like he's as, I mean, if you had it just right there, I mean, not that it really matters, but if you had it right there, I think Superman could just get a wider stance without him sort of looking like he's kind of off to the side like this. Really like the display stands, though. I'm going to move that to the side. The figure also, like I said, also comes included with some hands. Now, right now, the figure has closed fists. If you, though, prefer to have your figure in a flight pose, then he also has these hands as well. Don't expect to see color. Don't adjust your monitor settings. These are supposed to be in gray. Also thing about this is that it's the same hands that also came included with the other Superman. The other Superman, by the way, in question, I've already taken the liberty of removing one of the hands. I did that in his review, and I always have sort of just kept the hand as sort of one flying hand, one closed fist. He basically essentially gets the exact same thing with this release. It's just a matter of popping the hands off. One thing also I wanted to say as well, going back to the Superman card, the card that came included with the Page Puncher Superman, for example, had again like the same consistent card across the board. I don't think I've yet to look at really Black Adam. Constantine was also another one I don't think I had the chance to look at, but we will get around to looking at those at some point. But Superman and the Batman, we also had the chance to have a look at. Really cool looking cards that came included with those original Page Punchers figures, the 4 at least that made up this wave. But again, like, you know, if you look at the back, by the way, the back on the cards, this one will have a read-up. Obviously, well, we've already established the fact that this isn't going to have a read-up. I just want to show you guys the difference between the cards. If you did want to change out the hands, one thing I will say, though, about the hands is it still seems to be the case that they're using these really large hands. I think proportionally, they don't quite jive with really the sculpting or the proportions of the forearms. I think the hands look almost way too big. But if you did want to change out the hands, it's pretty easy. You're just going to wiggle the hand and remove it from the provided post. Then we're going to go ahead and take the flight hand and pop it back in place. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily improve the problem. I still feel like he's got really, really large hands. Head sculpt wise, I mean, again, it only takes the existing mold I was really a big fan of before and basically just strips away the color. Not only is the color stripped away, sort of giving a more zombie looking Superman, but also one thing they've also added to this figure, which I think is really the charm of this figure, is the fact that they've given a glowing eye area. So it sort of looks like he's either about to use his heat ray vision or he has just finished using his heat ray vision and sort of the area around his eyes is still burnt. Really like that effect. Now, if they had just done away with that color, I think it still would have looked to be a good looking figure. But I feel like the red that they used around the eyes ties then nicely with the emblem that they have on the front, the cape, and of course the trunks that he has as well. This particular body, I think, has also been used before as well. I'm really liking this particular leaner looking Superman. It looks, I think it's one of the best Superman bodies we've gotten. And I think the emblem is also one of the best we've gotten as well. But though, just to go quickly back to his head sculpt, because I really didn't want to, again, I just feel like it's one of the best Superman that we've gotten. And I, even in that review, said that this was certainly one of my favorites. It's one of those figures I feel from a Superman standpoint that looks good from all sides. Whether you're looking at it from the front, or you're looking at from the sides, it definitely has that sort of chiseled look that Kal-El's face should really have. Every once in a while, we do get a really good Superman, but it's really hard to kind of nail, I feel like, that best looking likeness. And I feel like still this one, the Page Punchers one, it's still one of the best we've gotten. Now, the cape in this case, if we spin this around, is again no different of a cape than what we got with the original Superman. It sort of does wave off to the side. It sort of zigzags a little bit. I think it's the only thing I really don't like about the figure is the fact that the cape doesn't just drop. Or if it doesn't drop, if it just didn't wave out instead. Like this sort of zigzag thing, I feel is just too busy for unnecessary reasons. The other thing also about the cape is the fact it's missing the back emblem. So if you're one that likes to have your Superman symbols on the backs of capes, this one unfortunately won't have it. The original Superman also didn't have that either. But again, I like the mold. I like the mold that they've used. The Superman symbol is definitely one of the best symbols we've gotten. If you can overlook the idea that this one also has that Superman Returns sort of belt that he has, which not really a big fan of that myself. I just prefer more of an oval myself. But again, it's a really nice looking Superman. And something about to be said, the fact that the color's been stripped away, you would have imagined really that the figure would have been missing personality, missing a little bit of pizzazz. But the fact that they then add this red color, which isn't even so much a red, it's sort of more like a neon pink. It's a really good color. Maybe they could probably have darkened it just a little bit because, again, like if you look at the colors around his areas of his eyes, they aren't even really pink either. There's sort of more of a, I guess, a light peach color. The only thing also I would say also about the face is the darker areas around his cheeks, I think are probably a shade too dark. It draws even more attention. Maybe it has more to do with the fact that it's supposed to look like he sort of burnt the areas around his eyes, and maybe that's one of the reasons why this is as dark as it is around his cheeks. I think it's maybe a little too dark, but overall, like the color scheme, for what little we get of it, looks really great on the figure. From there down below, of course, we got the more narrower trunks, fit and more conform to his body. These, again, are softer plastic, which will certainly help a lot when it comes to the figure's articulation. And again, he's got this so standard-looking Superman boots. I love the design of these as well. He does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet, going, though, back to the original Page Puncher Superman. That figure didn't come included with a display stand. He actually came with a flight stand. Kind of wish that this guy could have come included with a flight stand, but I guess considering that they also throw in this as well, It's something that we really haven't gotten with a whole lot of figures anyways. For the figure's articulation, going back to Superman's head, the head rotates all the way around. It looks up and looks down, and it also rocks back and forth as well. The arms do rotate all the way around. The way that the cape is designed as well, it doesn't really take up a lot of space on the shoulders, so it really makes things easy for the arms to rotate all the way around. In addition to that, of course, you can bring Superman's arms out at 90 degrees. He has a bicep swivel on both sides. He also has a double hinge on the elbow and also both sides. And even though his large hands are a little on the larger side, they do rotate all the way around. The upper torso is on a ball joint. Now, I do like also the way that they put the joint right below the S. One of the problems I've also had with more of the recent Superman is the fact that it sort of has what I always best describe as sort of a bleeding S. It sort of drips down in the middle area here. Some of you have also commented on that as well. I like that this S is just a perfect Superman S. Nice and raised, you can see as well, like the S portion is actually lifted higher than the grade that's underneath it. But it is definitely one of the best Superman S's we've gotten. Going back, though, to the point I wanted to make about the articulation point, he has the upper torso ball joint, so that moves up. Actually moves backwards, it moves forward. You can also rock it back and forth as well, and yeah, you can, in theory, rotate it all the way around, although probably not best advised to do that. The lower end of his abdomen also has a ball joint, so you can rotate that also all the way around. Legs do split, they're on ratcheted joints. You can take, of course, the legs and move them forward, you can move them back. He has a swivel at the top of the thigh. He has also a double hinge on the knee. And he has no articulation in the boot. The boot is simply just, I'm guessing, just a continuation of the calf, but he has at least ankle pivot back and forth this way. With, as well to mention, he also has toe articulation there as well. Again, like with a lot of these gold label editions, the ones that have that slip cover, I mean, a lot of these, again, are just repaints from figures that we have gotten, in fact, before. I'm just going to move the card out of the way. And yes, while this Superman is really essentially sharing the same mold as this one that we already got from the Page Punchers line, again, like there's enough of a departure where I don't feel like I'm just getting a figure that has slightly a different, well, obviously it's a change of paint. They've tweaked something, but they haven't really remolded anything. But to put them on the shelf together, you can still tell that they are using the same molds. But by using the colors with very limited quantities that they did with the black and white Superman, and by also adding those accents of red, I really also wanted to bring in, I should have really brought in that Anniversary Superman. That's also one that did well for being a similar mold, of course, than not this one, obviously, the Doomsday or the Hush Superman. Use the same mold as that one, but it just goes to show that when you change the palette, when you change the color scheme to these figures, you get really interesting results. And I think already, being a big fan of the Page Puncher Superman as I was, it's certainly one of, I would say, top five Superman that I still have in my collection from the DC Multiverse line. I like the look of this one. I love the look of this one too, with the black and white color scheme. It really does pop. Which is really ironic to say that, because there's really not a lot of color. I think a lot of it is just the charm, the fact that they've colored the area around his eyes. The glowing eyes is really the thing that sells me the most on this figure. For the final looks here of the black and white accent edition Superman, I'm sort of breaking my one cardinal rule, and that's that I don't tend to use accessories if they weren't packaged with the figure. Like if it didn't come with a flight stand, I'm not going to use a flight stand when it comes to any of the reviewing, because I don't want to doctor anything that wasn't already packed along with the figure. I'm going to use at least the argument here that this, while not being packed along with the accent edition Superman, was at least though packaged with the Page Puncher Superman, and they're using the same mold. Is that okay? I hope that's okay. It's too good of a figure really not to have him in flight pose. I mean, yes, the figure does have quite large hands. I mean, these oven mitt-sized hands that the figure came included with might also be the only thing I really criticize the initial mold of this figure for having. Sometimes Superman gets packed with awfully large hands, and this one obviously is no different. But the rest of the mold is really one of the best, I feel, best molds that we've gotten for the Man of Steel. Yes, the colors are a little bit more absent this time around, but it more than makes up for it with, I think, one of the best head sculpts that we've gotten for Superman, and a much leaner looking body as well. The cape I'm still not crazy about, whether it decides to be a more darker burgundy with the original Page Punchers, or we get more of the vibrant red that we're getting here. This actually kind of reminds me of like a cherry taffy color that we're getting for both Superman's cape, his trunks, his boots, and of course the emblem that he has on the front of his chest. Still is one of the best molds that we've gotten for the Man of Steel, and even looks almost better. I don't want to even say it looks better, but it looks different enough that I feel like I like both of them for completely different reasons. I like the initial mold of the Superman. I like the more darker colors that they approach with sort of that bluish gray that they use for the majority of his costume, and I like the more muted colors of the yellow and the red. This one I actually like just because it's got a grayscale, a black and white scheme, and also because he has the glowing eyes. Love the glowing eyes. For me, that's my favorite thing about this figure. If you have the chance, Again, it's only limited to 3,000 copies, so that's the hard thing. Try to track this guy down now. Initially, he was listed over on Big Bad Toy Store. Obviously, it was an exclusive over there, but has now since sold out. Only 3,000 copies to go around. So if you are able to, and you're able to find this guy over on places like eBay, for example, for a decent price, don't break the bank over him. I definitely would say he's worth picking up if you're a big fan of Superman. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And have you had the chance to get the Superman black and white accent edition? Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of him. Big thank you once again to not only the Big Bad Toy Store for making this an exclusive, but also the thanks over to McFarlane's team for providing the sample of the BBTS 2023 exclusive Black and White Accent Edition Superman. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving, though, the content you're seeing, and certainly do want to stick around for more DC Multiverse reviews, rest assured, though, will be more coming your way. But the key, make sure you're not missing out on any of the things that the guy behind the camera is posting on a regular basis. First, hit that subscribe button down below. I mean, it's a simple thing, but it's a good thing that goes a long way to ensure that you're always going to get those reminders. And speaking of reminders, it's always good in your best interest to also turn on the bell notification. It's a two-step process, I know, but it also at least ensures that you're always going to be in the know for whenever the guy, again, behind the camera, that's me, is always posting new content. Lots of things coming your way, guys, so as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.